John Frost looked on the gathered crowd, now 3,000 strong. With heavy heart, his voice rang loud as he sang this loveless song. God is a guide from field, from wave, from plough, from anvil, and from loom. We come our country's rights to save and speak a tyrant faction's doom. We raise the watchword liberty. We will be free. For when the rising tide is turned in every London quarter, Parliament comes crashing down with Robert's Rules of Order. And bobbies took an oath to be our nation's warders, swearing that they would enforce Sir Robert's Rules of Order. Till Newport rose a million friends who rallied each supporter to join this flood of working men against Robert's Rules of Order. For when the rising tide is turned in every London quarter, Parliament comes crashing down with Robert's Rules of Order. Like this, on the steps of Parliament, John Frost stood proud and tall. A hush fell on this great event as he told them one and all, depose the gentry and the crown, depose the House of Lords, or join the Queen in exile by Robert's Rules of Order. Socialists, Luddites, Communists, recall each faithful martyr who died so you could have your new world. Robert's Rules of Order. Say it loud, vote your favor, shout it high. All in favor, you say aye. Favor, aye, favor. Aye. A mandate of the people's cry. Favor, aye, favor. Aye. Let's hear the opposition side. Like a stubborn donkey's bray. All opposed, you say nay. Opposed, opposed. The motion carries anyway. Currents change and bring to us our tear-corrupted warder. In chains subdued and ill-abused, he's left with no supporters. Mobility's will can then proceed by our own rules of order, and we'll all cheer for country's sake when Robert's drawn and quartered. For when the rising tide is turned in every London quarter, Parliament shall be reborn with Robert's Rules of Order.
Oh, I was daydreaming. Daydream is not the right word. I was kind of just like thinking of all the crap I have to do next week. So I was lost in thought it might be. So the title is somewhat misleading. I should have made it like really spicy or something because I did not attend Parli-Prep, but Mr. Seebeck did. But before we're going to let him talk about
he didn't
what he
miss
learned.
much.
Before, I'm sure you learned something though. You said there's something I wanted to bring back out. Okay, I opened up the box. Back when we first started Cult of RONR, I ordered a cool ass gavel on eBay. And I showed it once on the show. And this is back, remember when I had the desk the other way and we were sitting across from each other? That's how long ago this was.
Oh, wow.
And then I promptly lost it. And that's when I got that clear lucite one. RTD announcements. And it turned out it was in my sewing room underneath a bunch of LP stuff. And the way the box is all old looking, I thought it was a sewing foot. And before all of you foot fetish people think I'm talking about something weird, a sewing foot is an attachment you put on your sewing machine that does specialty type of stitches. Okay. So I thought it was an antique sewing foot because I collect those, but instead it was another little cute little tiny gavel. Remember this one? It's from like a lodge.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't say like moose or elk or whatever, but it's some kind of, yeah, and it might be ivory. It's from the 50s. It's definitely not like moose or elk because the names inscribed on it, there's one man and one woman, and those are fraternal. Those are male only. So this was whatever kind of lodge system society this was, it was co-ed. But something we didn't really appreciate.
Or they could have gavelled in a wedding.
It's so, but it is so petite. It is as...
The vowels are not in order. Bam.
Oh, yeah, it's about the same size as that little lucite one I got. Anyway, I wanted to bring this back out. But something I don't think we appreciated that was in that box This is again from the 50s. A little pamphlet holding a past president's night. But here's what is so cool. The ceremony of passing the gavel.
There's a ceremony?
Yeah, this is, I don't know. This is just such a cool little pamphlet. One day maybe we'll go over it, but I'm going to stick it back in the box. All right, so tell us, what did you learn, Mr. Seebeck?
I learned that just because you're a PRP doesn't mean you don't understand jack squat about bylaws. The printer.
You're froze again. We had this problem before. I'm going to text Mr. Seebeck.
A conflict that showed up.
Okay, you froze for a little bit, but that's okay.
What all did you hear?
You were about to tell us what you learned.
Oh, not much. Because keep in mind that we've messed around with bylaws so much it's crazy. So I don't say we've seen it all, but we've seen a hell of a lot. And
we've seen a hell of a lot with the LP. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm starting to see things. I mean, on the Roberts forum, you saw some of that crazy stuff we saw.
I know. I've seen some of that. But the thing that popped up in this tonight was a conflict between 56.8 and 56.11.
All right. Let's look at that. Did they acknowledge a conflict, or you think there's a conflict?
I think there's a conflict because the presenter talked about 56.8 specifically. And that says, and I quote, it's one sentence, in order to give the organization the greatest freedom to act within its object, bylaws should be made no more restrictive nor more detailed in specification than necessary. Okay. And I said I disagreed with that because if you don't be specific, you create loopholes that could be exploited by bad actors and also conflicts with what 5611 says.
Yeah, where it says indisputability of meaning. I mean, I kind of understand how the two harmonize, and I think it depends on the organization.
Okay.
I mean, for political...
To me, it's more specific as required.
Well, when it says no more restrictive nor more detailed in specification than necessary, I think that than necessary is your wiggle room. In a political group, it's very necessary to be very specific. But perhaps in most groups devolve, they might as well be political parties. But I'm sure there's some peaceful groups out there. We might not have ever encountered them, but I'm sure they exist. Actually, the one client I'm working with is very peaceful. So are
they peaceful, or you haven't seen the internal politics yet?
No, I've seen the internal politics. It's peaceful. So I would say, like, in a group like in a group like that, the bylaws aren't terribly specific in a lot of areas, and that does suit their needs. So I think that then necessary carries a lot of weight there.
He didn't touch on that. We were focusing more on the specificity versus the broadness.
Well, it says no more restrictive nor more detailed than necessary. So, for instance, ours says, like the LP, let's just go, because the LP is what we know, that the whatever, I think the bylaws committee shall be appointed no later than 12 months prior to the convention. Okay, 12 months gives enough time. More specific would be must be appointed within the first 2 weeks of the 13th month prior to convention. Well, is that specificity necessary? No. But giving them a year is as specific as necessary. So I think the two harmonize. I mean, that's just my view. Depending on the organization.
Part is how you look at it also. I mean, if you look at it and the presenter was taking the perspective of you want to enable the board or the executive committee or whatever it is, board of directors, to be able to do the business of the organization in between your annual meetings. And our perspective has always been a little bit different. Yeah, we want them to be able to do that, but don't screw with the members at the same time. And that makes me a little more of a cynic. I'd rather grant the permission than assume it for obvious reasons. And I think that's just how we think anyway as libertarians. But at the same time, it makes we're skeptical of we don't want power corrupting.
Well, plus we've trauma bonded.
This is true.
Everybody in this party, I think, has some either trauma bonding or trauma disassociation.
And we've been on this end of the whack-a-mole, yes.
I still like my little lucite one, though, too. Okay.
What you ought to do is do a comparison of that lucite one and that other one I got you.
Oh, I am, because I actually, you know how upstairs, pretty soon, because you've moved away, you traitor, that you're not going to recognize.
I'm a traitor, I'm a scout.
You're not going to recognize. I've done so much cleaning in the studio, you wouldn't. I've like cleared out so much shit. Anyway, upstairs, I don't know, you hadn't been in my home office very much, but I had a bookcase up there. It had all my Robert stuff in it. That bookcase is gone. Downstairs, I had a collection. When I was writing that biblical commentary, I had to have a lot of biblical works for background. Well, I'm not doing that anymore. So when I don't need anything anymore, I get rid of it. So all of that's getting donated, and I'm keeping my main Bible and my favorite Bibles, a couple of them. But now that bookshelf down there is all Robert stuff, and I'm displaying all of the gavels. So we'll be able to see the size differences. But
I wanted to get I sent you a picture of one from a couple of weeks ago when we were getting some legal stuff. Oh, it was a gavel sitting in a bookcase of law books. We were getting our.
I think I remember. Maybe I don't, but maybe I do.
Yeah, the size of the gavel was literally this wide and this tall. It was huge, and I'm going.
Who's
I buy that?
Me? Is that you texting me? That better not be you texting me.
That is not me texting, and I'm not texting you. I sweet. See, look, come on, no hands.
Okay. Well, it might be RTD alerts.
Oh, saying that the trains aren't working again.
Oh, let me just text her. It's a friend. I don't want her to think I'm ignoring. I'm gonna put, "Hey, I'm doing a show. I'll text back after." I just don't want her to think I'm ignoring her.
Nah.
Okay. I forgot where I was at now. All right. So, yes, I am going to display my gavels. Yeah. Did at the Parli-Prep tonight, they talk about that one obscure, and hello, Joe, that one obscure provision that says that bylaws votes should all be counted. You know, I'm like in love with that provision.
They did not talk about that at all, actually.
You should have brought that up, because most people are shocked to hear about it.
Unless it came up in the last couple of minutes when I bailed out to come over on this.
Okay, well.
Which is possible, but, you know.
All right. Well, then.
That was crossing over.
Then we'll go to the questions. Yeah, okay. One of them's a 2-pager, because you're sending me these things that are like libertarians writing convention themes. It's like paragraphs. Like
it's just the way they wound up. I didn't write these darn things, you know. It's just the way they showed up.
This is totally like libertarians. Okay, so there's not enough room to put our faces, so we're going to do it with just the questions. And I wonder if Richard knows we're live, because Richard likes coming to these shows. But okay, here we go. I'm going to read it out loud for those who aren't watching and just listening. The Friends of the College Library is currently under great financial difficulty. The secretary reports that she has received a letter asking the Friends to increase their donation to the scholarship fund. The treasurer immediately moves, quote, that the Friends not give the money to the scholarship fund at this time. Is this a proper motion? And Mike, I hope you still have the answers, because this has been a couple weeks and I don't remember what the right answers were, but we're going to work it out. A, no, because only the secretary can make motions since it was her report. B, yes, so that the position of the friends is very clear to anyone reading the minutes. C, no, because not doing anything will accomplish the same thing. D, yes, because the friends may be able to do this at another time when the organization has more money. And I'm going to see if I can put us up here. Here's me, just so that we can keep the answers up here while we're talking about it. I can make us smaller. Let me
I'm
see
not sure where I hid those. I'm not sure where I hid those.
I got me twice. I'm trying to get you up here. Let me see. Guest Mike. There we go. Look at us. Look at me all fancy figuring out how to do this, but I got to make us a little smaller, I think.
We're on the spot.
Yeah, just gotta.
Yeah. If that improve, that's an improvement.
Okay. All right. So this way we can discuss it and people can still see the things. So talking through it, yeah, and you're gonna, because I think I disagreed with some of the answers. I don't remember. A is definitely wrong, right?
A is obviously wrong.
Right.
I'm looking through my things here. Oh, here we go. I just found it.
And actually, I'm doing the actually. Where did I read this? God, I wish Richard was here. I think I read somewhere, and it might have been in a national parliamentarian, that if there was a motion coming out of an officer's report, someone else had to make the motion.
Huh.
Does that ring a bell to you?
They mentioned there was I think they talked about that in a moment or two when they during the whole thing, but I don't specifically remember them talking about that.
Because I know I make motions out of my reports all the time.
And I don't see, to be honest, I don't think that's an issue, because how often have we had committee chairs give motions?
Committee's different though than an officer, because a committee, as long as it's a committee of more than one person, it's considered a motion of the committee. But I had
what about a treasurer presenting a budget though? Let me throw it that direction.
Someone else is supposed to make the motion to accept it, I think.
Well, that's interesting.
I'm not sure. I'm gonna look 41, and we can post this on the forum, because I'm pretty sure I read that someone was like, huh. Yeah, right here. I found it. 41:14. If an officer in reporting makes a recommendation, he should not himself move its implementation, but such a motion can be made by another member as soon as the officer has concluded his report. In the case of a committee report, on the other hand, the chairman or other reporting member should make any motions necessary to bring the committee's recommendations before the assembly for consideration. A motion arising out of an officer, a board's, or committee's, whatever, that's talking about whoever.
I see what you're saying, and to me that doesn't make much sense. Why?
But it says it.
Why is it? Yeah, I know it says it, but why does it say it?
I don't know. We should ask this at the forum.
Yeah. Why does there have to be an exception to the that the officer can't move stuff out of their own report? It doesn't make any sense to me. Why are they being denied that right?
Yeah, that is strange. And I'm wondering if someone else moves it, does it need a second, or is the fact that it was in the officer's report considered the officer seconding it? This would be good questions to put on the forum. Yeah. Now, the type of motions that normally come out of my report as secretary are really pro forma. They're to approve the minutes.
Right.
And I would tend to think that's somewhat of an exception, but that would be interesting. I think we should post these on the forum. You remembered last time to post on the forum. So, if someone else has to, why does someone else have to make the motion? And if someone else makes the motion, does it need a second, or is it considered seconded by the officer that made the recommendation in the report? And is there an exception for the minutes, or should the chair just go, are there any objections to adopting the minutes? Because that's always a weird kind of motion anyway. All right, so it's not A. It's definitely not A, because the rules say opposite.
Yeah. Right.
So B, yes, so that the position of the friends is very clear to anyone reading the minutes.
If the position was to change where they were at, then I would say yes. But that's not what they're doing here. They're saying that the friends not give the money to the scholarship at this time. Okay. Here's the problem with the question. Okay. It specifically says that they got a letter asking them to increase their donation to the scholarship fund. That implies that they're already doing a donation. But then the treasurer moves to not do that, not increase it, just not do it. Okay. So
I think
that makes an interesting point there.
I think you're misreading the motion is ill-formed, but if you read it carefully, I don't think it says that. It says that the friends not give the money. What does the money mean? I think the money means the increase.
I read it to be the current, but
I think both are probably. It's an ill-formed motion, but I think the intent of the question is to read it as the money being the increased amount.
But the minute that, but then they tell you you can't make that assumption based on the wording of the question on the exam, which is ridiculous.
I know, but if it is, and I think the answer also though is telling you how to interpret that question, because otherwise B would just be like yes, so that people know that the friends are broke and they ain't giving the scholarship fund shit.
Yeah. I mean, if it's cutting off all the donation, increase or not, then B is the right answer. But if it's just cutting off the increase, then C is the right answer. That's the problem.
So let's assume it's just they're not going to give the higher amount, but they're still going to give their regular amount.
Then that would be C, because they're not doing anything different, so therefore there's no point in the motion.
Right.
But if they want to cut off the increase, they'll cut off the money completely versus what they had been doing, including a possible increase, then B would be correct because they have changed their position. That needs to be reflected in the minutes.
And why wouldn't it be D? Now, I know why. We're doing this for the audience. You and I both know why, but I mean.
Well, D says yes because the friends may be able to do this at another time when the organization has more money. Well, in that case, you can always bring it up at that other time, and it's not relevant to the moment.
Right. Yeah. So what people really need to take from this is no motion is an order that would have the same effect as never making a motion at all.
Right. You can't. Moving status quo is out of order.
Right.
Simple terms.
And sometimes that gets confused with, but I think it there's a Venn diagram where there's kind of an I almost said insurrection because I was thinking of Kamala Harris. There's an intersection. I was thinking of her and Venn diagrams, and then before you knew it, I was at January 6th somehow. All right.
Man, you didn't jump rails. You jumped railroads.
Yeah, I just really went all over the place. There is what some people confuse this is with an affirmation motion of affirming a prior position, but that's also out of order.
Correct. Yeah.
And that intersects with making the motion. If you already have the position, making the motion does nothing. It's really just virtue signaling.
Right. Yeah,
and that did come up last LNC term. If you remember, there was a motion to reaffirm the membership oath for the LNC. and I raised a point of order that the motion was out of order. We've already signed the membership oath. We don't, have to do it again.
And of course, people were arguing against your point, even though it was perfectly valid.
Yes. And it did get ruled out of order. And Joe in chat is saying that he also thought it was the supplemental dollars. I think that's the only way that this quiz question makes any sense. Okay, next one. Now, this is a 2-pager, so I'm not going to put us on the screen when I'm reading it, but we're going to have to remember what it says because the answers are on another slide because, my God, this was written by libertarians. All right, so the next one. Look at this. Oh, my God. The Parrot Breeders Association. I like them already. The Parrot Breeders Association has usually held, I misspelled, an annual meeting, where members gather from all over the country. However,
don't you know what an annual meeting? It's an annual meeting held in the country.
Yes, where? However, because of the pandemic in 2020, the annual meeting was held using an electronic platform. This is bringing up trauma. The bylaw, this is really bringing up trauma. The bylaws have no provision for electronic meetings and no applicable statute or other governmental action. Okay, we're going to stop here for a second. And I'm going to read this question again. Hold on. We're going back to the main screen because I've got to get something off my chest here and don't say anything nasty. So... if you remember back in 2020,
yes,
there was that whole argument because really electronic meetings weren't like that big of an item of dispute. Joe's got it. Is the internet a place? Remember that whole
dispute? Yes, it is.
When the 12th edition came out and it explained further about electronic meetings and how they have to be authorized specifically in the bylaws, I was vindicated. Everyone who held the correct position that we were not allowed to have an electronic convention. Now, we did end up amending our bylaws back and did it.
Right.
But originally, no, it was not authorized. And the 11th edition, I thought it was pretty clear. But the 12th made it abundantly clear. Vindicated. Booyah. Okay, now let's go back to the Parrot Breeders Association and we'll start again.
But the internet still is a place.
But it's not a synchronous gathering of the assembly in one place. It's not like that. Anyway.
That's because that section of Roberts was not written by an IT professional who understands how the internet works. But that's their problem. But
they made it very clear in the 12th. So, the Parrot Breeders Association has usually held an annual meeting where members gather from all over the country. However, because of the pandemic in 2020, the annual meeting was held using an electronic platform. The bylaws have no provision for electronic meetings, and no applicable statute or other governmental action authorized them for this group at that time. The association bylaws only allows bylaw amendments at the annual meeting. But its members, misspelled again, did make several important changes to their bylaws at the 2020 meeting, which, remember, was all electronic. Which of the following is the appropriate action for them to take at the 2021, the next year, in-person annual meeting? So here are the answers, but I'm going to get our mugs up here. So there's me. I'm going to put me here, and I could be a little bigger. Hold on, just a little, and let me get you up here. Now there's two of me. Okay.
You're getting me up. Yes.
Here we go. There we go. Oh, damn it. Okay, there we go. Perfect. All right. Okay. A, they should handle these bylaws amendments as if they had never been considered. B, They don't have to do anything special since the bylaw amendments were already adopted at the last annual meeting. C, they need to vote to ratify the changes in the bylaws that were made in 2020. D, they must consider that any actions taken under the new bylaws invalid, and if possible, they must be undone. There is so much here.
Yeah. Okay. For starters, let's go back to the question for a second. We can leave us up there. I just want to go back to the question.
Oh, okay. You want me to put it back up?
Yes. Yeah.
We won't be there, okay, though, so I got to go here.
That's fine. Okay. The first problem is this. The 2020 meeting was held electronically, which was not authorized by the bylaws, by definition, or by any other ability to do it.
Right.
Therefore, anything that they did at that meeting actually wasn't valid in the first place. So let's go back to the answers.
Okay. All right. Now let's distinguish with the LP. The LP had a physical meeting. At that physical meeting, we made a temporary bylaw to allow, to allow that meeting only to be hybrid. Only the people who were there in person were able to vote on that temporary bylaw.
Don't freaking remind me.
I know it took all day to get to that point. But once that bylaw was adopted, then the people online were able to participate. And and we had, how many people were there in person? I think it was about 400, maybe?
Somewhere in there.
And the worry by the online people was these people in person are just going to vote to disenfranchise us. And how many people voted against? I think it was 15.
Yeah. And it was like they spent the whole day arguing over that. And we're sitting there and I'm going, would you please just vote on this damn thing already? It's like Joe
is in chat with all the slogans. All right. Okay. So just wanted to clarify that with the LP is different than what the Parrot Breeders Association did.
Right.
They had an all electronic meeting.
Yeah. So
okay.
So because it was an all electronic meeting, not authorized by the bylaws. B falls out because they actually weren't ever adopted properly. Right. D is a weird one because you don't know if they did any actions under those new bylaws. We just simply don't know. However, if they did, then maybe there's a problem there.
Let's go back to D. Okay, so we're going to go back to D again because there's some interesting things there.
Yeah. We'll come back to put a pin on that one. I don't think you can ratify the changes that were made because the meeting wasn't valid in the first place. Ratify is an area I always have trouble with.
Me too. I think ratify might be, though.
Hang on. I'm going to go look that one up.
Well, one thing we know, A is indisputably correct. There's no... It was an invalid meeting, so it is as if they had never been considered.
Right. But which means the question becomes, so if A is correct, then C can't be correct.
Right.
By definition, because you either have to ratify the changes were made, which is treating them as if they had been considered, or if you treat them as they're not considered, then you can't ratify them. So if A is right, C is wrong.
Well, let's look up ratify because you and I have gotten into like all kinds of arguments with other parliamentarians over this and with each other. Because it is a weird thing. And you got in some arguments on the Roberts Forum that I stayed out of over this as well.
Yeah. It's 1054.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. So it can be to make valid an action where no quorum was present, to make valid action at a special meeting that where it wasn't mentioned in the call of the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look here. Or actions taken at an electronic meeting of a body for which such meetings are not authorized. I think
Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay.
I think A and C are both correct. However, C needs to have a caveat to it. So A is indisputably correct in that when it says handle, I think it means it should view these bylaws amendments as if they'd never been considered. Considered's probably the right word. I'd put as if they're not valid. And then C, if they like those bylaws amendment, they would need to ratify them. And the ratification vote would be the same threshold that it would be to adopt them for anew. So for all intents and purposes, it is like they're amending the bylaws in 2021. But I think A and C are both kind of correct.
Yeah, I can see why you say that, because it specifically says action to carry out a decision made without a valid meeting, this is approval obtained separately from all board members or at an electronic meeting, which without that was where the meeting was unauthorized. Right. I mean, it specifically mentions that. So
I think A and C.
I can see where C could be correct here because of that specific section.
Now, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
D is okay. B is completely wrong.
Right. Now, so because if you were at a test, though,
A or C is right, B is wrong.
If you were taking the test, what would you pick, A or C?
I would have picked A, because of the lack of authorization on the bylaws of electronic meeting in the first place, meaning the whole thing was null and void. But if that's the case, then that raises the interesting question about D.
Well, we'll get to D for. I think A is the best answer.
But I think that's why they're saying C might be valid, because if C is valid, it negates the need of what D would do. Because if you ratify, well, actually, no. Wait a second. That's no. Okay. I'm backing that statement up. Wait a minute. I'm walking that back, because let's say they don't ratify the changes. Then all of a sudden, you have to look at those actions to see if they're valid or not.
Then we start getting into retroactive.
Right, which is a whole different animal.
And
Roberts is terrible on retroactivity or undoing things.
And my philosophy, which I think is the only one that honors members' rights and logic, on retroactivity, it depends on what these bylaws amendments were.
Absolutely.
There's certain types of things you can make retroactive, I think.
Yeah.
And certain things you cannot. You can't retroactively violate someone's rights. And the example I like
to say that again, because that went all metallic.
Oh, okay. So say you have an organization, and they decided they didn't like the past board. They have buyer's regret on everyone they elected to the past board. And let's say everyone that they elected to the past board happened to be blondes. You can't make a retroactive bylaw amendment that says no blondes shall serve on our governing board. This amendment is effective as of the last election. You can't retroactively make an election invalid. I think so. Things that restrict member rights, I don't think you can make retroactive. Certain things that may have granted broader protections or broader rights, you can. I think it's very much a case-by-case situation where you need to view it in equity.
And this goes back to some other discussions we've had offline, is if you make something retroactive, does that give them the right to enforce the rules that they've made retroactive, even though at the time what they're talking about was something totally different.
Yeah,
I would
no,
argue
I don't.
no, because that opens the door to all sorts of trouble.
Right. No, that we would never tolerate in the government, for instance, even though the government does do that when it changes a statute of limitations and it does it for past crimes. But again, you're dealing with crimes, that gets into a whole other. I actually don't think that's legitimate, but I understand the argument for why they did it. I mean, you can't say a criminal committed that crime counting on the fact that he would have to lay low for 10 years to get away with it. But
or the opposite. Or the opposite. What they did at the time was legal, and then later it was made illegal.
That's different. The statute of limitations one is the one that's kind of weird. Yeah, but retroactively making something illegal.
That wasn't.
Like, say,
totally
that, tomorrow the government decided to make a law to make interracial marriages illegal. Does that invalidate all the... Now, besides that being an evil law, I'm just trying to come up with something that once did exist.
You're giving an example. Yeah.
Right. But that's interesting because that could become a question in the issue of gay marriage. If the Supreme Court that gets weird, but let's forget about the government because the government screws everything up.
That's true.
In groups. So if they adopted them anew, then with D, I would think that any action, and when it says take under the new bylaws, I am reading that to mean the new the bylaws amendments, because they didn't do a revision. They didn't adopt a whole new set of bylaws.
Yeah, I read it that way too.
Okay. So it's not any action taken under the whole new bylaws. It means the new sections of the bylaws.
Yeah.
If they just adopt them anew, then I think D is a possibility. In order to avoid D...
Whoa, wait a minute. You say if they adopt them and...
If they don't ratify, if they just consider them again and adopt them...
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Then actions taken under those new provisions under D might be invalid. Someone could raise a point of order for as long as the breach was continuing. But most actions taken are not continuing. They're usually over and done with, and they can't be undone. That's what a lot of people don't realize. And in fact, that was an issue when my 2021 suspension was overturned. People were like, oh, if there was any vote where her vote would have made a difference, does that call into question the entire business of the board? No, because most business on the board is not an action that's continuing. And there wasn't, by the way, any votes that differed by one. But even if there was, maybe that would have been an issue if it was an employment contract and that staff member was still there. But usually it's not something like that. It's something very insignificant. But if we
saw a case of that recently, which we're not going to talk about here.
What I would think the better action would be, depending upon the bylaws of the Parrot Breeders Association, is to adopt them anew, take a look at past actions, and if any actions could be subject to a point of order, to ratify just those actions.
Yeah. Adopting them as if they were new is the safe route to take. Definitely.
Yes. And
they could move to ratify and go from there, but that runs both of those routes run the risk of rejecting those changes, but there's a less likely chance of them being rejected if they're adopted anew and they'd already been dealt with, than there is of say, oh, well, we're not going to ratify it after all. So
because ratifying it, if it was something, say one of those changes, here's something interesting. Here we're going to really go into the weeds. Say one of the changes was the requirements to be a delegate at future conventions.
Yeah. And here you are.
And it restricted the definition.
Right.
So when those delegates come to be credentialed at the 2021 convention, those 2020 amendments, this is exactly the type of thing I'm talking about that can't be retroactive.
Right.
When they come to be credentialed, they still qualified because they qualified under the 2019 bylaws, because the 2020 is as if it never happened.
Right. Yeah, it creates a whole lot of mess.
And ratifying it would uncredential them, but it wouldn't uncredential them from the moment of the vote. It would credential them from the beginning of the convention. Then you'll have to determine, well, they couldn't vote to ratify because by ratifying, they're making themselves ineligible to vote. So you get into all kinds of weird pretzels. So I think it depends upon,
crazy stuff.
Yes, it depends on what they were. The safest answer is to just readopt them. And if there's any isolated actions that need to be ratified, that just those be ratified.
But I'm willing to bet you on the test, they're going to say the answer is C because of that 1054 section we've already cited.
I'm sorry. My headphones ran out of charge. I'm going to try to hook up another set now.
Now pause for support commercial message from our sponsor, the law firms of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
These are the ones I couldn't get to connect before, though.
Our personal seat tester, Mike Keister, our Russian chauffeur, Pikoff and the Robov.
It doesn't.
And a few other casts.
I'm trying to connect them. Hold on. I don't know why it doesn't want to connect.
Got to be there somewhere.
Device type. Okay, I'm going to hit forget this device. And then I'm going to turn it on and off again. And see.
Please stand by. We are experiencing technical difficulties.
This serves me right for buying cheap headphones. Anyone out there feel sorry for me? You can get me good headphones. Let me see here.
I will admit I haven't tried my current set on this new computer, but maybe I'll give that a shot on coming up in the future.
It's not finding them. Searching. Well, we could still talk. It's just there's going to be a little bit of feedback because you're coming across my computer speakers right now.
Uh-huh. Well, I hear you just fine, so.
It's not finding these headphones. That is freaking crazy. Anyway, so if I were taking this test, I would say A.
Yeah, I would say C because of that 1054 citation specifically.
Well, C presumes that they like the changes.
Well, yeah. Well, no, it's to vote to. No, it doesn't mean they like the changes. They need to vote to ratify them.
If they like them. What if they're glad that they were done at an invalid meeting?
Then they can reject them by not ratifying. But that's a consequence of the vote itself. But the vote needs to happen first, is why it says they need to vote to ratify.
What does your answer sheet say?
That's the problem. I can't find the sheet, but I'm willing to bet it's C.
And I'm willing to bet it's A.
Because I couldn't find the damn thing.
Wait, hold on. I'm gonna go look in my folder where you sent it to me and see if I can find it. Because I think the answer is A. Sample questions.
What's the date on that?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't find it in my email. I stuck it in my folder. I don't think you gave the answer key here. You just sent me. You didn't give me the answers. You bastard. You didn't give me the answers this time. You just sent me the questions.
Now I can't find the stupid thing I sent you.
And where did you find these?
I came across them online on some sample questions, just
Okay,
some
well, let's
general.
do a Google search for the Parrot Breeders Association had an annual meeting, and let's see if we can find. I'm going to do that right now. If we can find where you got these from and if the answers are there. It's at the
Let's see
National
if I can.
Association of Parliamentarians.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, here's the answer key. No, but this I can't find the parrot one yet. Hold on. Let me see. Okay, what number was this? This was number 2. A. Yes.
Did they give a reason?
It said 1055.
Really?
So let's look up 1055.
1055. An assembly can ratify only such actions of its officers, committees, delegates, or subordinate bodies or staff as it would have had the right to authorize in advance. It cannot make a valid voice vote election when the bylaws require elections to be by ballot, nor can it ratify anything done in violation of procedural rules prescribed by national, state, or local law, or in violation of its own bylaws, except that provision for a quorum in the bylaws that does not prevent it from ratifying action taken in a meeting when no quorum was present.
Oh, no, that makes sense now. So
That contradicts 1054.
No, I think it's 1054 is the general, and 1055 gets more specific.
I think that's the opposite, because 1055 talks about it can't do a thing that violates its own bylaws, but 1054 gets more specific about electronic meeting that wasn't authorized. That's more specific.
But it's no, I don't think so. So 1055 says it can't ratify anything done in violation of its own bylaws. The bylaws.
Yeah, that's the broader case.
No, I think that's the more narrow case, because the bylaws presumably say that, well, it said that they can only be amended at the annual meeting. Well, they didn't really have an annual meeting. So that's in violation of the bylaws. But say at that same annual meeting, they voted to donate $1,000 to the Society for the Elimination of Cats. Well, that's something they normally would be allowed to do, donate something. They don't have to do that at an annual meeting, but they did it at an electronic meeting. That was the problem. So the problem in this case is twofold. It was an electronic meeting, and thereby it wasn't the annual meeting, and the bylaws can only be amended at the annual meeting. And you can't make a non-annual meeting an annual meeting.
I don't think annual meeting has anything to do with this, because the 1054 says electronic meeting. It doesn't say whether it's annual or not.
Right.
At 1055 doesn't even talk about meetings at all.
It says
except for
the association bylaws, I'm putting the question back up, only allows bylaw amendments at the annual meeting. There was no annual meeting. You can't create an
annual. In 2020, the annual meeting was held using an electronic platform.
But because the bylaws don't authorize an electronic platform, there really wasn't an annual meeting. And because you can't ratify something that's in violation of the bylaws, you can't make an annual meeting actually an annual meeting. There was never an annual meeting. Now, other actions taken at that annual meeting that would be allowed at other times other than an annual meeting can be ratified, because that doesn't violate the bylaws
How?
that certain actions can only be taken at a certain time.
Convoluted.
It is convoluted, but
That is totally convoluted.
It is convoluted, but I think A is the right answer. So, and Joe agrees with me. So if Joe agrees with me, you lose.
I don't agree with that because we have two contradicting sections of Roberts again. One of which specifically says that you can ratify actions taken at electronic meetings when such meetings are not of a body for which such meetings are not authorized. Well, in this case, it wasn't authorized by definition and because of their bylaws. Therefore, they would take ratification action on those actions, which can include amending the bylaws.
But there was never an annual meeting. You can't make an annual meeting an annual meeting.
The question says there was.
Well, they pretended like there was.
Question says there was, and you have to. And according to what
the question is worded. The question is worded badly.
I think keep telling me on this is that you got to go by what the question says, not what you think it says.
I think the question should have said in 2020 the annual meeting purportedly was held using an electronic platform.
I agree with you on that, but that's not what the question says, and they keep beating on that with me, and I keep telling them then you got to go back and fix your questions.
But the correct answer is A, so now you know when you take the test if that comes up. And I wouldn't be surprised if this comes up all the time in all kinds of quiz because the pandemic is trauma bonding for everybody.
But now you understand why I keep raising hell with NAP about their test questions because their test questions, frankly, they suck. Because they just they weren't checked very well. Okay, was that the answer?
Yeah, I don't know why it was doing that. Okay, here we are.
No, put that back up again. Put that back up again.
Hold on.
Now scroll up just a touch.
Hold on. I gotta go to this screen.
It's question
2, the parrot breeders.
Question 2. Okay, so go back down to where you were. Question 2. The correct answer is A. See RONR 1055. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said.
That's what they're claiming. Yeah, that's what. Okay, that's fine. That's just double checking that. But the reality of it is that the question is poorly worded, and that's what caused me trouble on the last exam was because they write these questions and they don't bother to proofread them to realize that what they're writing doesn't make any sense. Hell, we've been talking about this for how long? Just because of that difference in terminology in the question. So.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, I don't know why I can't get these headphones to work. They only work
Apple.
up. What? Oh, shut
up.
It's
Apple.
They do work with my laptop, so I'm gonna just keep them upstairs. I'm gonna have to buy another set for down here. Yeah. Because these have been charging the whole time. There's no reason why they should have ran out of juice. But hold on, I wanna plug them back in before I forget. Are they charging? Yeah. Hold on. Stick them back on the wall to charge. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it.
Yep. So, well, I'll let you know when that package gets here. So.
Yeah, and please do let me know if I sent you just an empty box.
You want to tell everybody what that's all about?
Yeah, so I have a new Canon camera. Hello, Canon camera. And I wanted to send Mike my really good Logitech freestanding webcam that I was using before. Because it's better than his laptop camera that he had. And I sent it out. I got it all packed up in a bigger Amazon box. It's the only box I had. And sent it out. And then I was cleaning up the studio today, and it needs a lot more cleaning. And I come across the exact Logitech camera. It's not another Logitech, because I do have a second one that's not as good. But that exact one, and I'm like, did I have 2 of these and just not remember? Or did I send did you get the box?
No, this is one I have that I'm not using at the moment.
Oh, okay. The one I have.
It kind of clips on the what the. Here we go. It kind of supposed to clip over the top of things.
Yeah, mine clips on the top too, but it looks different than that one.
Yeah, but it's just a USB. It's just a Logitech USB. So.
Well, so I'm like, I see it sitting there, and I'm like, did I have 2 of those? And if I didn't, I sent Mike an empty box. So you're gonna let me know, because if so, I don't need that other Logitech. I have a third Logitech too. That's not as good as the other ones. And in my cleanup, I found a Canon camcorder that I forgot I had. That's better than the Logitech that I could have been using instead of the Logitech. So I'm going to relearn how to use that Canon to set up a second camera angle, but I need another video capture card for it, because with cameras, you can't just plug them into your computer. You have to use a video capture card. So hopefully
laughing at Joe's comment.
We'll see. You'll have to do a box opening, but if that camera's not in that box, what a dumbass I am.
Think of it. Do we have a Parli-Prep next week? I think we're getting close to the end of them.
I don't know, but in any event, I have an LNC meeting, and
that's true.
Those, they're supposed to end at 7, but they generally aren't.
Right.
And I like to get started on meetings minutes right away, and I've got cleanup to do, so I can't do a show after an LNC meeting.
That's fair.
Okay. I think that's it. I'm ready for bed now. I'm ready. It's been a long day, because I filmed a Pink Parliamentarian today on, you're going to love this, fiduciary duty. 2, I did a Jurassic Dictionary on cupidity. Then there was just this informal workshopping meeting I needed to go to, and my microphone broke upstairs, so I had to do that down here. Then I had the show with you. I've been in this fucking basement. Like, I really am the libertarian basement dweller right now. I've been in the basement all fucking day. The only thing that was missing is Wayne didn't bring me some Hot Pockets.
You're slacking.
So with that, I'm off to bed. So have an awesome night, everyone.
Have some Hot Pockets before you go to bed.
Yeah. And we're going to have the closing music, and I'm going to... All right.
And give the dogs an ear scritch for me.
Bye-bye.
Let's hear the opposition side, like a stubborn donkey's bray. All opposed? You say nay. Opposed! Opposed! The motion carries anyway.